Greetings and welcome back to Haftarot, the weekly video cast in which we take a look at the upcoming week's Haftara, try to understand its essential message and how it's related to the Kriyat HaTorah. And this week we're going to be taking a look at Parashat Behaalotecha and its attendant Haftara. And this is a Haftara that we've already studied. It is the Haftara that is read on the first Shabbat, or the only Shabbat, of Chanukah. And the reason should be fairly straightforward, but we're going to take a look at that in a little bit more detail. This Haftara comes from the book of Zechariah, and there are two Haftarot from the book of Zechariah. There is the first day of Sukkot, which comes from the very end of Zechariah, and there's this Haftara, which again is used twice for Shabbat Chanukah and Behaalotecha, which is in the middle of a series of visions that the Zechariah Hanavi has during the time just before the rebuilding of the Mikdash, what we like to call the building of the second Beit HaMikdash. In the book of Ezra, we find out that there were two Nevi'im in Yerushalayim, Chagai and Zechariah, who gave the moral and spiritual support for the rebuilding of the Mikdash. And Chagai's Nevuot, which do not make it into any common Haftarot, and it's a very small book of 2 chapters, seem to be focused on the political and military vision of independence ultimately, and of at least autonomy, if not sovereignty, which is going to accompany this new era under Persian rule. However, Zechariah's focus in the first 6 chapters, really 8 chapters, is on the spiritual angle of it. And on one night, which as you see here at the beginning of this text, on the 24th of the month that we call Shvat, in the second year of Dayavish, meaning a couple of years before the Mikdash is going to be rededicated, which is in the 4th year of Dayavish, Hashem gives Zechariah a series of visions, 7 visions in all, and the visions really are constructed in a way that the first vision and the 7th vision match each other. They're about horses coming to Yerushalayim, leaving Yerushalayim. The second vision and the 6th vision are somewhat associated. They're about metal things, tools, weapons coming into Yerushalayim, leaving Yerushalayim. The third vision and the 5th vision are also somewhat matched. They have to do with measuring Yerushalayim. And the middle vision, which is the focal point of our Haftarah, is a vision of a menorah. If you think about it, a menorah is made up of 7 stems, which is really 3 stems and the middle, meaning 3 V's and the middle, and in the same way, the vision looks like that. However, each one of these visions comes along with a dialogue, a prayer, an explanation of what the vision is and how the Navi responds to it in his dialogue with Hashem. It's a fascinating read, and it occupies from the middle of the first chapter of Zechariah all the way through the 6th chapter, very short chapters. And our Haftarah here includes the preface to the 4th central vision, the vision of the menorah, and it also includes the vision of the menorah itself. I want to focus on one point that shows up at the end of the vision. Parenthetically, the first part of this is all about the selection and the purification of Yehoshua HaKohen HaGadol, the 2 great leaders of the community, both in Zechariah and in Chagai, are Zerubbabel ben Shaltiel, who's the political leader, he's the governor of Medinat Yehud, of the Judean province under the Persians, and Yehoshua ben Yosadak, who is the Kohen HaGadol. And in this Nevuah, we get the sense that Yehoshua feels, or the people feel, that he is not pure enough to step into this position of Kohen Gadol of the new Beit HaMikdash. We haven't had a Beit HaMikdash in nearly 70 years. We haven't had a Kohen Gadol operating for that long. Who am I to step into this position? And there is the appearance here of a character we call Satan. Take a look in Pasuk Aleph. Vayreini Yoshua Kohen HaGadol omed al lifnei malach Adonai, Satan omed al yamino l'sitno. So Zechariah reflects that he sees Yehoshua standing in front of the Malach, and a Satan is standing there. Satan is an accusing angel, and he's accusing, essentially saying, this man is not worthy. And Zechariah is given this nevuah so he can communicate to Yehoshua that he is worthy. And here's what happens. Vayomer Adonai el Satan, Nigar Adonai b'cha Satan, Nigar Adonai b'cha bocher b'Yerushalayim. God essentially chastises the Satan for accusing Yehoshua, She said, this is a brand saved from the fire. This man was saved from the exile. Give him a break. In the meantime, Yeshua Hayalavush Begadim Tzoin, who was wearing filthy clothes, filthy clothes are symbolic, it's all in a vision of him being not worthy, of him being tainted. So God commands the people around him and the malachim around him to take into this vision, take off the filthy clothes. You see, Yeshua, I have taken your sin away from you, and now you're going to wear glorious clothes. And they put a glorious mitre on his head, and all of that is beautiful. And then he is given the charge to be loyal to the mitzvot, and then we get the nevuah of the menorah. Zechariah sees a vision of a golden menorah with golden bulbs on top with oil that are dripping in, and in front of them are two olive branches. This, of course, was adopted as the semel, as the logo, if it were, as it were, of Medinat Yisrael. And it is the second to last line here, which is critical. It's all critical. Vayan vayomer Eli lemor. Zed dvar Adonai el Zerubbabel lemor. This is the message to Zerubbabel, to the political leader, meaning there's a whole message of the menorah, of spirituality, of wisdom, of loyalty to Hashem. Here's the message to Zerubbabel, the political leader. Lo v'chayil v'lo v'choach ki'im beruchi amar Adonai tzvaot. Which may be translated, as commonly translated, as not by might, not by power, rather with my spirit. In other words, this will be a spiritual revolution, not a military one. But a proper translation of it probably is not only with power and not only with strength, but also with my spirit. And that is the combination of Zerubbabel and Yoshua. That is the two olive branches that are in front of the menorah. That's the combination of Zechariah and Haggai. That, of course, then becomes the model for this first building, which is done spiritually, without sovereignty, with only limited autonomy, and then the military component, which happens 350 years later, under the Chashmonaim, led by Yehuda HaMaccabi. This is read on Parashat Behaalotecha because the beginning of Behaalotecha is the mitzvah of the menorah. But critical to note that the mitzvah of the menorah here comes after the long description of the dedication of the Mishkan, which is Chanukah Tam Mizbeach and Chanukah Tam Mishkan, and the completion of it is the menorah. And so even though the menorah only occupies a small number of psukim at the beginning of a beautiful Parashat Behaalotecha that has so many different themes, it lights the way for the entire parasha, and as such, that is the Haftara that we read, Haftarat Zechariah, Nerod Zechariah, as it's called, and hopefully this gives us a little bit more insight and illumination into the theme of this Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.